Welcome back to Switch to Linux. So I've had some requests about Canonical, their direction, and rumors of an IPO. Of course, an initial price offering, as in taking the company public. Of course, Canonical is the company behind Ubuntu, probably the most prolific Linux distribution. And so I thought I'd go ahead and look into it and make a brief little commentary on it. And there's not a lot of news here. Mostly it was news maybe like last year. But basically the issue is that it kind of started right before Ubuntu 17.04 came out last April. They announced the end of Unity 8. They were no longer be developing Unity 8. That caused a big ruckus as Ubuntu went back to GNOME. And a lot of people have asked, said, oh, why'd they go back to GNOME and all this? And what does Ubuntu really work for? What are my thoughts about all this? So first, let's go ahead and dive back into a few of the older articles. So this is from ZDNet, and basically just talking about Mark Shuttleworth himself revealed that he was probably making Canonical ready for an IPO. This is, of course, it says early April. This was early April last year. Note that this is an older article. What they did is they wanted to stop the Unity 8 development, and they wanted to focus on the core Ubuntu, the IoT, and the cloud infrastructure. Those are kind of the focuses that the Canonical group wants to have. Unity wasn't necessarily a profitable area. Now, some people have questioned what do they do now that they don't have Unity. Well, Unity was just the desktop that Canonical worked on. Canonical also owns and works on Ubuntu. And they're not slowing that down, because if you do anything on an IoT or a cloud infrastructure, you know that Ubuntu is a big option. If I create an AWS account, the AWS account goes right on into there, and you can go right into there and just auto-select to auto-install in Ubuntu, an Ubuntu build really quick. Just spin up Ubuntu. And that's the type of stuff they're working on. So I actually think that streamlining everything, taking the Unity staff, rediversing them to other places in the company to focus more on the core development, IoT, and cloud means we're going to have a better product, because the desktop Ubuntu's not going away. They just made the option to bring in the GNOME desktop environment instead of the Unity, because it's something that a full other independent development team is working on that. Now, other people have asked, why do you use GNOME? Part of the reason probably is because that's what it was a long time ago before they created Unity. I agree with one person. Why not make it like Budgie? Something that's modern and new and different. Especially since Budgie is a much more traditional, or at least can be themed better as a more traditional desktop. But maybe that's what they're not going for, because Unity itself was never really a themable desktop that you could actually do a lot with. And so, of course, there's another article from, just 6 months ago or so, October. They're talking about heading for an IPO. Some people think this is going to be the end of Ubuntu. Some people think this is a good thing. And of course, somebody had cornered Mark and Shuttleworth and had a brief discussion with him. This was actually just on Reddit a couple of days ago. And here he's just kind of talking about the same stuff he was talking about before. Nothing new here at all. So people have asked my views, what are my opinions on this, and so that's kind of why I wanted to do this. On the positive end, it means more money and more development coming into the system, and that means that we have probably more feature-rich, more ability to do some of the things. If there's been a big bug list or a big log of desired features or requested features, they'll have more revenue, more capital, hire more people, and make sure things get done. That's the positive side. The negative side is if big companies, it would not surprise me in the slightest if some of the big tech companies want to buy up a portion of it and redirect it. Now, in this interview, it was either this interview that I just showed on the screen or the earlier one from ZDNet, where he said, we're not exactly going to let any investors dictate the direction we go. We already know the direction we want to go. But anytime you're bringing on investors, you always have the opportunity to listen to those investors and sometimes have a little bit of the coercion. And of course, if you didn't watch the movie Social Network based on Facebook, since that's been in the news, the unearthly thing. Now, the funny thing about that movie is listening to Mark Zuckerberg talk about the social network. He's like, I'm surprised they got nothing right except every single shirt they had me wearing in that movie I actually owned. It's like, what? And so that's kind of one of those funny little things about it. And that's that... the reason I bring all that up is because investors came in and they decided instead to finally bring on advertisers and other things. And the investors directed the direction for the company that probably led them in this bad scenario they are in right now. And so that's kind of what the circumstance situation happens to look like. And so the reality here is that it's a good thing, especially since Shuttleworth knows the direction he wants to go and is going to be resisting bringing on investors that are trying to dictate the direction of the company. That's not what he wants to do. But we still do have the risk that big companies like Microsoft could come in and start owning a big portion. And if Microsoft starts owning a big portion of Canonical, that will raise some serious questions in the Linux community. And rightly so. Some people, of course, myself included, I have some concerns even with some of the collection that the new 1804 Ubuntu wants to do. I have some quibbles about that, but it's not nearly the level Windows 10 is, and it's not nearly as difficult. And it's simply a matter of in the install, don't select to send the info if you don't want to send it. And once the system is installed, remove app port and remove popcon, and that takes care of everything Ubuntu is collecting. And that's not collecting nearly, like I said, the amount of data Windows 10 is. It's just collecting lists of your apps and your hardware profile, which some people are okay with that, but there are certainly a lot of people who use Linux for security and privacy who cannot have their hardware profile leaked like that. And so that's my biggest concern, is that it's doing that. However, Ubuntu is not specifically built as a privacy-centric browser. You want to use a specific privacy-centric browser, you're going to be looking at Tails. You're going to be looking at, so you have Tails you can look at, you can have Cubes you can look at, you have the new heads you could look at, you have Hunix you could look at. So there's options for that. So my overall take on this entire direction, is it a bad thing that Canonical wants to go out and do an IPO of some form? I don't think so. I don't think it's a big problem. It's something certainly to watch for. Definitely it's something that we want to know who those investors are and the directions they want to take, and if there is any side note. That's kind of my thoughts on it. I'm not super concerned, but absolutely I want to keep an eye out for that. Thanks for watching this video. You can check out another video right over here. You can check out my Patreon page right down here. And you can also help support us at switchtolinux.com/support. I'll have affiliate links to Amazon, PayPal, and I also have some merchandise available at shop.switchtolinux.com.